Hi guys, it's been a minute. So for the past 2 weeks now I've been working on an update for the inventory system, trying to get it up to engine version 5.4. What I initially thought would take me 24 hours to just update the project actually took 2+ weeks. But here we are, and one of the key issues I was facing was that when I was upgrading the current project to 5.4, it seemed that the 5.4 engine version didn't really get on very well with the previous engine version's grab components, and in particular it just seemed to affect skeletal mesh actors, that when I was to release them to the floor they would still be influenced by the player's hand movement, almost like they were tethered to the hand still somewhat, and they would act erratically and sort of just wiggle around on the floor. I couldn't actually figure out what changes had been made to the engine version, and in the end I just decided to scrap the current VRM grab component that I made from the previous version of the project and just replace it outright with the one in the 5.4 engine version. So let's open up both projects and run a comparison and see the differences between the two in the blueprints. So the first major improvement is that in the previous version you had to set independent slot transforms and holster transforms and the slot type per actor by pulling those values from the grab component in the graph and setting them manually, as here on the left. This was really user unfriendly and tedious and just unnecessary amount of work, so I've just scrapped that entire system, and instead in the new version over here on the right I've basically just added a singular VRM settings struct to the grab component that is in use on each actor, and now you can just set those settings in the details panel of the grab component under the title of VRM. So you can see here you've got your slot type, your holster and slotted transforms and weight if you want to use that, all sorts of stuff. So that's just a more user-friendly system, and it also opens the door to potentially those people who don't want to use the grab component for the pickup and drop logic, or just the grab component at all. You could literally just transfer that struct to any place you want and just pull that data into the slot from wherever you've transferred it to. So the next improvement I made was to the backpack actor reference in the VR pawn. So the backpack actor reference in the VR pawn in the previous project was actually hard coded to only reference the backpack actor that you were pulling from your shoulder in the previous project. So I thought that was a little inflexible and limiting without at least making some changes to the code, and in the new version I made that backpack actor reference just a normal generic actor, but instead what I did was I added a backpack type enumerator to the inventory component, which you can see here in the details panel, and you can add different types of backpacks now, and through what comes out of that enumerator runs through a map variable where you can select different backpack types. This is going to make it so that you could make a series of custom designed backpacks. Just add them to the enumerator, run them through the map, and you can just decide to sort of spawn whatever backpack type you want per character. So for the next improvement I put a lot of thought into how I would try to make the process easier for those that may want to integrate this VR inventory system into a different project type using a different character type with completely different pickup and drop logic, as in not using the grab component to do that. In the previous project you had all this, which you would have to duplicate over to any existing character in any other project that you wanted to, thereby having to create all these kind of different variables and stuff. It was just a lot of work. So what I attempted to do, because most of the logic was built into the VR pawn to grab and pick up stuff and drop them and store them in slots, I basically decided to transfer pretty much all of that logic into a new function library that you can call directly in the blueprints. This has led to a considerable cut down in the blueprint scripting on screen, and also it's much easier to transfer this to different character types in different projects, because now it's not hard coded to use the grab component all the time. In fact, this system was built with the idea in mind that you could actually not use the grab component for any of that logic, but you could still use it to get things such as the transforms for the slots or holsters or the slot type, if you still want to use a component that's attached to an actor for that data. So you can actually just use a more traditional character setup here, where you're just using more traditional pick up and drop functions, and just use the actors instead. So you can find all of this logic in its own independent VRM inventory graph now. And if I open up, say, one of the functions, should take me straight to the library. You have a ton of individual modular functions on the left here, which you can use for individual things like storing in a slot or retrieving from a slot. You also have these two functions called Uber grab and Uber drop. And this is basically like a chain reaction of all these different things, and it will just handle all the logic going through all the different options you could potentially be doing when you're releasing the object into a slot or an auto slot or a holster. So before we venture into the project to demonstrate some of the improvements to the slot detection system, I just wanted to mention a couple of other changes to the project. And the first being that I've removed the Steam Skeletal VR hand system and replaced it with the default hands from the Unreal Engine VR template. This is in order to keep the hand system a bit more familiar. It also allowed me to pivot away from using the legacy input system, and I've removed all the embedded input events and replaced it with the enhanced input system now for everything. Also, there is now a new blueprint interface that handles all the communication from the player pawn to the slot system. So let's step into the project to check out some of the improvements I've made to the slot detection system. Oops. So, in the previous version of the release, unfortunately I noticed a couple of issues where more than one slot type could be active at one time if the slots were grouped tightly together, as in, say, for the backpacks. And if that was the case, sometimes the extra detected slot wouldn't deactivate. Now this could just be my end, because I've been tinkering around trying to get the best out of this system that I possibly could. But as you can see here, the system's extremely responsive and quick, and you literally can't get more than one slot to activate at the exact same time. So much more improved. The other thing you've probably noticed is the changing colour of the slots when it's detected. So the slot system now works on a traffic light system, so if it is the correct slot for the item, it will highlight green. If the slot is already active or already occupied by an item, it will highlight amber. If it is the wrong slot type, it will highlight red. Now this saves time, because the previous system, what it did was it would only highlight red to tell you that it was the wrong slot type for that item after you'd released it, which was a bit annoying because the item would fall to the floor and then you'd have to pick it up. This just gives better player feedback to inform the player to not even waste this time trying to attempt to slot that item in that slot. Also, in addition, and going back to something I mentioned earlier, I've added a completely new slot type and new backpack type called the Radius system. So as you can see, there's a backpack with a singular slot. As my hand enters the area, the backpack's internals become visible, and you can store items in there when you let go, in whatever rotation and position you desire. This is named the Radius system after the Into the Radius game, and was a community request that I decided to add. Now this is an experimental and very early stage of this backpack, but it's there for you to build on if you want to. Currently this has no item save system because I'm not quite sure how it's going to work, but it's here all the same anyway, so at least it's a start. So that concludes the quick overview video of the update 1.2. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like because it really helps the channel out. But also, if you're already an existing owner of this project, please go to the marketplace and leave a review so that other developers can know exactly what the quality of this project is and how it could benefit them. Anyway, with all that said, sayonara.